I'm Rebecca Mitchell, 34, and nothing could have prepared me for what happened at our family gathering last month. My 7-year-old daughter Lily disappeared for an hour during the party. When I finally found her, she was sobbing in the upstairs bathroom, her beautiful blonde hair completely shaved off. Standing over her with electric clippers was my sister Stephanie, laughing as if this was the funniest thing in the world. "It's just a joke," she said when she saw my face. But the devastation in my daughter's eyes told a different story. Before I continue this nightmare, let me know where you're watching from. Hit subscribe if you've ever dealt with toxic family members who crossed the line. 2 years ago, my life took an unexpected turn when my husband Mark and I divorced. It wasn't a bitter separation, we simply grew apart after 10 years of marriage, but it still left me rebuilding my life as a single mother to Lily. Despite the challenges, I managed to create a stable, loving home for her. We moved into a cozy 2-bedroom apartment closer to my work as an elementary school librarian, and we developed new routines that worked for us. Lily was always a resilient child, but the one thing that remained her constant source of pride throughout the divorce was her beautiful hair. Long, blonde, and naturally wavy, it reached the middle of her back. Every morning, we had our special ritual where I would brush and style it for school. Sometimes a simple ponytail, other days intricate braids I learned from YouTube tutorials. She loved when people complimented her hair, often shyly smiling and saying, "My mommy did it for me." My relationship with my sister Stephanie has always been complicated. 3 years older than me, Stephanie grew up being the star of the family, head cheerleader, prom queen, the daughter who could do no wrong in our parents' eyes. While I was quieter, preferring books to parties, Stephanie commanded every room she entered. As children, her competitive nature often turned cruel. She would accidentally spill juice on my school projects, hide my favorite toys, and once cut up a dress I was planning to wear to a middle school dance. Our parents, Thomas and Eleanor, consistently minimized her behavior. "That's just how sisters are," they'd say. "She's just playing around." As we grew older, Stephanie's tactics became more sophisticated, but the underlying message remained the same: she needed to win, to be superior, at any cost. After graduation, I moved away for college and stayed away, returning home only for holidays and special occasions. Stephanie married her high school sweetheart, Bradley, a successful attorney who enabled her lifestyle as a stay-at-home mom to their daughter Amanda, now 16. On the surface, Stephanie had everything: a mansion in the suburbs, luxury cars, expensive vacations. But her marriage was rocky, and Amanda had been acting out lately. Despite creating distance between us as adults, one tradition remained sacred in our family: the annual 4th of July reunion at our parents' lake house. It was a massive gathering where extended family from across the country would come together for a weekend of barbecues, swimming, and fireworks. I nearly canceled this year. Work had been stressful, and the thought of navigating family politics seemed overwhelming. 2 months earlier, at Easter dinner, Stephanie had made pointed comments about my failure to maintain my marriage, suggesting Lily would grow up damaged without a father figure. I had walked out early that day, promising myself I wouldn't subject Lily to that environment again. But Lily begged to go. She loved swimming in the lake and playing with her cousins. "Please, Mom? I miss Grandma and Grandpa," she pleaded. Against my better judgment, I agreed. I told myself we would stay only for the afternoon barbecue on Saturday, avoiding the overnight drama. When we arrived at the lake house, everything seemed pleasant enough. My parents greeted us warmly, Dad picking up Lily and swinging her around as she giggled. Cousins ran through sprinklers on the vast lawn sloping down to the lake. The air smelled of charcoal and sunscreen. Stephanie arrived fashionably late, making an entrance in designer sunglasses and a flowing sundress. She air-kissed my cheeks and commented on my sensible outfit, a backhanded compliment typical of her. What struck me as odd was how she immediately focused on Lily, complimenting her hair excessively. "My goodness, Lily Bear, your hair has gotten so long." "It's gorgeous," she cooed, running her fingers through my daughter's locks. "We should do something fun with it later. Would you like that? Aunt Stephanie could give you a makeover." Lily, always eager for attention from the aunt who rarely showed interest in her, nodded enthusiastically. I felt a twinge of unease but dismissed it. What harm could come from a little hairstyling? Perhaps Stephanie was genuinely trying to bond with her niece. As the party progressed, I noticed Stephanie pulling Amanda aside several times for intense conversations. The teenager seemed reluctant, rolling her eyes and shrugging off her mother's hand. I should have recognized these as warning signs, but I was distracted by conversations with relatives I hadn't seen in months, catching up on family news and helping my mother arrange food on the buffet table. I wish I had paid more attention. I wish I had trusted my instincts about Stephanie's unusual interest in Lily that day. But years of conditioning to overlook my sister's behavior, to not make waves in the family, led me to ignore what my gut was telling me. It's a decision I would soon regret more deeply than I could have imagined. The party was in full swing by mid-afternoon. My uncle was manning the grill, sending the aroma of burgers and hot dogs wafting across the property. Cousins played volleyball on the sandy stretch of beach, while the older relatives gathered in clusters under shade trees, plastic cups of lemonade or something stronger in hand. I got caught up in a conversation with my cousin Jennifer, who was going through her own divorce and seeking advice. We found a quiet corner of the deck to talk, and time slipped away. It wasn't until my father announced that the food was ready that I realized I hadn't seen Lily in quite a while. "Have you seen Lily?" I asked various family members as I moved through the crowd. "I think she went inside with Stephanie and Amanda," my mother offered, arranging condiments on a picnic table. Something about her tone seemed off, slightly nervous, maybe? I dismissed it and headed into the house, calling Lily's name. The main floor was empty, but as I approached the stairs, I heard muffled sounds coming from the second floor. Laughter. Then a sob. Then more laughter. I took the stairs two at a time, the sounds growing louder as I approached the main bathroom at the end of the hall. The door was partially open, and I could hear Stephanie's voice, high and amused. "Hold still, sweetie. We're almost done. Don't you want to look like a movie star?" Then came Lily's voice, small and uncertain, "But I don't like it. I want to stop now." "Don't be silly," Stephanie replied. "Your mom will love it. It's going to be such a surprise." I pushed the door open fully, and the scene before me stopped me cold. Lily sat in the bathtub, surrounded by long blonde locks of her hair. Her head was patchy, half of it completely shaved to the scalp, the other half in process. Tears streamed down her face. Stephanie stood over her with electric clippers, while Amanda leaned against the sink, looking uncomfortable but saying nothing. "What are you doing?" I screamed, rushing forward to grab the clippers from Stephanie's hand. Stephanie stepped back, laughing. "Relax, Rebecca. It's just a makeover. Lily wanted to try something new, didn't you, sweetie?" Lily was fully crying now, her small body shaking with sobs. "I didn't want this. Aunt Stephanie said we were going to do pretty braids, but then she said my hair needed to be shorter first. I told her to stop but she wouldn't." I wrapped a towel around Lily's shoulders and lifted her from the tub, holding her close as she cried against my chest. The sight of her beautiful hair scattered around the bathtub like discarded trash made my stomach clench. "This isn't a makeover, Stephanie. This is assault. You cut off my daughter's hair against her will." Stephanie rolled her eyes dramatically. "God, you always were so dramatic." "It's just hair. It grows back. Right, Amanda?" Amanda looked away, refusing to meet anyone's eyes. "Whatever, Mom." By now, the commotion had drawn attention. My parents appeared in the doorway, followed by several aunts and uncles. "What on earth?" my mother gasped, taking in the scene. "Stephanie shaved Lily's head against her will," I said, my voice shaking with rage. "Look what she did to her." Stephanie immediately shifted her tone, adopting a hurt expression. "That's not true. We were having fun, doing a little makeover, and Lily changed her mind halfway through. What was I supposed to do, leave her with half a haircut? Rebecca is blowing this completely out of proportion." my father sighed heavily. Girls, girls. Let's not make a scene in front of everyone. A scene? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Dad, look at what she did to Lily. This isn't a prank or a joke. This is cruel. Some family members looked genuinely horrified. My Aunt Patricia stepped forward, her hand covering her mouth. Oh, that poor child. Stephanie, what were you thinking? Others, however, seemed to be taking Stephanie's side. Hair grows back, my uncle remarked with a shrug. Kids change their minds all the time, another cousin added. My mother tried to smooth things over in her typical fashion. Well, what's done is done. Maybe we can find a cute hat for Lily to wear until it grows back a bit. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This wasn't about a hat or growing back hair. This was about consent, about respect, about an adult deliberately traumatizing a child. We're leaving, I announced, still holding Lily close. Right now. Don't be ridiculous, my mother said. You can't leave. We haven't even eaten yet, and the fireworks. I don't care about the fireworks, I snapped. I care about my daughter, who has just been traumatized by her aunt while everyone in this family once again looks the other way. I pushed past them, carrying Lily down the stairs. She clung to me, her small body trembling. At least finish shaving it evenly before you go. Stephanie called after me. She looks ridiculous like that. I paused at the bottom of the stairs, turning to face my sister. Stay away from my daughter. From both of us. I mean it, Stephanie. She laughed, that same dismissive laugh I'd heard my entire life whenever she crossed a line. It's just a joke, Rebecca. Lighten up. But as I carried my sobbing daughter to the car, past the staring relatives and abandoned party games, I knew this was no joke. This was the moment everything would change. The drive home was agonizing. Lily curled up in the back seat, the towel still wrapped around her shoulders, occasionally reaching up to touch her nearly bald head in disbelief. The few patches of longer hair that remained only emphasized what had been lost. Am I ugly now, Mommy? She asked in a small voice that broke my heart. No, baby. Never. You're beautiful, always, I assured her, meeting her eyes in the rearview mirror. What Aunt Stephanie did was wrong. So wrong. And it had nothing to do with you. But why would she do that if she loves me? That question, so simple yet so profound, left me struggling for an answer that a 7-year-old could understand. Sometimes people do hurtful things that aren't about love at all, I finally said. They're about making themselves feel powerful or important. What happened today wasn't love, Lily. And it wasn't your fault. By the time we got home, my phone was blowing up with notifications. Text messages from family members ran the gamut from supportive to accusatory. From Aunt Patricia, that was horrific. Is Lily okay? Do you need anything? From my cousin Jennifer, call me when you can. I'm so sorry that happened. From my father, your mother is very upset. You didn't need to make such a scene and ruin the party for everyone. From my mother. I hope you'll reconsider your reaction. Family is family, and Stephanie has always had a different sense of humor. Let's not blow this out of proportion. And finally, from Stephanie herself, sorry you can't take a joke. Lily was fine until you freaked out and scared her. Way to make me the bad guy as usual. I silenced my phone and focused on helping Lily. We ordered her favorite pizza and watched Disney movies on the couch. I helped her wash her head gently in the bath, trimming the few remaining longer sections so at least her hair was even. She kept touching her head, flinching each time as if surprised anew at the loss of her hair. That night, she had nightmares. I heard her crying out in her sleep and found her tangled in her sheets, her hands protectively covering her head. The next morning, Lily refused to get out of bed for summer day camp. Everyone will laugh at me, she whispered, pulling her blanket over her head. I can't go. I called the camp director and explained the situation. Then I called Lily's pediatrician, who recommended a child therapist specializing in trauma. I made an appointment for the following day. When I finally checked my phone again, there were more messages, including one from the school counselor who worked year-round and had heard about the incident from another parent. "This is a serious situation," she told me when I returned her call. "What your sister did could be considered a form of child abuse. Has this kind of thing happened before?" Her question made me reflect on all the pranks and jokes Stephanie had played on me growing up, the time she locked me in a closet for hours, the time she told everyone at school I wet the bed, the time she accidentally pushed me down the stairs. Each incident had been minimized, dismissed, forgotten. "Yes," I admitted. "It has." The counselor suggested I document everything, including taking photos of Lily's shaved head and saving any text messages or social media posts about the incident. "Just in case," she said. "In case of what?" I asked. "In case you need to take legal action or involve Child Protective Services." The idea seemed extreme at first, but then I saw it. Stephanie had posted photos of Lily's shaved head on her Instagram account. The caption read, "My niece's dramatic new look. Some people can't take a joke. #AntLife #makeover gone wrong #so sensitive." The comments section was filled with laughing emojis from Stephanie's friends, along with a few concerned comments asking what had happened. To those, Stephanie replied, "My sister is creating drama as usual." Lily was totally fine with it until Rebecca started screaming. I felt physically ill. Not only had Stephanie assaulted my child, but she was now publicly humiliating her and painting me as the villain. I screenshot everything before calling Instagram to report the posts for sharing images of a minor without parental consent. Then I blocked Stephanie on all platforms and made Lily's own accounts private. But the damage was spreading. Extended family members were taking sides. Distant cousins I barely spoke to were messaging me, some offering support but others accusing me of overreacting. Stephanie was controlling the narrative, painting herself as the fun aunt being attacked by her uptight sister. Lily's trauma, meanwhile, was getting worse. She refused to leave the house, even to play in our small backyard where neighbors might see her. She started having stomach aches and refusing to eat. At night, I'd find her in the bathroom, staring at her reflection with tears running down her face. The therapist we saw described it as a combination of trauma and grief. "She's grieving the loss of something that was part of her identity," she explained. "And she's processing a violation of trust from someone who should have protected her." By the end of that first week, I was at my breaking point. The constant stream of messages from family, Lily's ongoing distress, and the practical logistics of caring for a traumatized child while still working full-time had left me exhausted and angry. Then the final straw, I discovered Stephanie had been calling mutual friends and family members, telling them I was mentally unstable and using Lily to punish her because I've always been jealous. Some people I'd known for years were actually questioning my version of events based on Stephanie's manipulation. That night, after finally getting Lily to sleep, I sat alone in my kitchen and researched my options. Legal websites suggested I might have grounds for assault charges, since Lily had clearly said no and Stephanie had continued. I could pursue a restraining order based on the harassment that had followed. I could formally report the incident to Child Protective Services. All options would mean fully breaking with my family, something I both feared and, I realized with surprise, longed for. The thought of finally standing up to the dynamic that had shaped my entire life was terrifying but also liberating. For the first time, I allowed myself to imagine a life where I didn't have to brace for Stephanie's next attack or my parents' inevitable dismissal of my feelings. For Lily's sake, and maybe, finally, for my own, something had to change. 2 weeks after the incident, the family pressure intensified. My parents called daily, their message evolving from "let's put this behind us" to thinly veiled threats. "Your grandmother's birthday is next weekend," my mother said during one call. "She's asking why you and Lily aren't coming." "Mom, I've explained this multiple times. Lily is still traumatized, and Stephanie will be there." "Well, Stephanie is family. She's always going to be at family events." You can't avoid her forever. I'm not asking to avoid her forever. I'm asking for consequences for what she did to Lily. My mother's voice turned cold. And what exactly are you expecting? For everyone to shun her? For your father and me to choose between our daughters? I'm expecting an acknowledgement that what she did was wrong. A sincere apology. And some assurance it won't happen again. She said she was sorry you were upset. That's not an apology, Mom. That's deflection. The conversation ended like all the others, with my mother sighing dramatically and saying, I don't know what's happened to you, Rebecca. You used to be such a sweet, understanding girl. That afternoon, my father called with a more direct approach. Your mother is beside herself, he began without greeting. This has gone on long enough. Dad, it's been 2 weeks since Stephanie assaulted my child. That's hardly long enough for healing. Assault? Don't you think that's a bit much? It was a haircut, for God's sake. Against her will, Dad. Lily said no repeatedly. She was crying while it happened. Kids cry about everything. Remember when you cried because Stephanie got a bigger piece of cake at your own birthday party? Should we have called that assault too? The comparison was so absurd I nearly hung up, but I forced myself to stay calm. This isn't about cake, Dad. This is about bodily autonomy. Well, your mother and I have been talking, he continued, ignoring my point entirely. You should know that if you pursue any kind of legal action against your sister, there will be consequences. What kind of consequences? Financial ones. Your mother and I have worked hard to build what we have, and we always plan to leave it to both our girls equally. But if you insist on tearing this family apart with restraining orders and police reports, we'll have to reconsider. The threat hung between us. My parents weren't extremely wealthy, but they had a substantial retirement fund, the lake house, and some investments. I'd never counted on an inheritance, I'd built my life independent of their help, but the implicit message was clear, fall in line or be cut off. So that's the price of your support? I asked quietly. Letting Stephanie abuse my child without consequences? No one is saying that, my father backpedaled slightly. We just think family matters should be handled within the family. After hanging up, I sat on my bed and found myself transported back to childhood memories I'd long suppressed. Stephanie cutting up my favorite stuffed animal because I'd gotten better grades. Stephanie telling everyone at my 16th birthday party about finding my diary, reading embarrassing entries aloud while our parents laughed along. Stephanie accidentally spilling bleach on my prom dress the night before the dance. Each time, the pattern was the same. Stephanie would hurt me, I would get upset, and somehow I would end up being the problem for overreacting or not taking a joke. My feelings were consistently invalidated while Stephanie was protected from consequences. And now, decades later, the pattern was repeating with my daughter. That evening, Lily came back from her therapy session with a drawing. It showed 2 stick figures, a larger one labeled me and a smaller one labeled Mom. Standing inside a circle. Outside the circle was another figure with angry eyes labeled Aunt Stephanie. Dr. Karen helped me make this, Lily explained. The circle is our safety bubble. We decide who gets to come inside. That's a wonderful way of thinking about it, I told her, blinking back tears. Dr. Karen says what Aunt Stephanie did was not love, Lily continued, her small face serious. She says love doesn't hurt people on purpose. Out of the mouths of babes. The therapist had managed to articulate in child-friendly terms what I'd been trying to explain to my parents for weeks. Later that night, I went to check on Lily before bed and found her in the bathroom, scissors in hand, crying as she tried to fix her patchy hair growth. She'd cut herself slightly in the process, small nicks on her scalp showing tiny beads of blood. I just want to look normal again, Mommy, she sobbed as I gently cleaned the cuts. Kayla from camp said I look like an alien. I called the therapist for an emergency session the next day. As Lily played with toys in the corner of the office, Dr. Karen spoke to me frankly. Rebecca, I don't usually get this direct with parents so early in treatment, but what your sister did to Lily was abusive. Full stop. The ongoing harassment and family pressure are creating an environment where Lily can't heal. I know, I said, the admission both painful and freeing. But they're my family. We're all Lily has. That's not true, the therapist corrected gently. Lily has you. A mother who's protecting her. And from what you've told me, these family dynamics have been harmful to you as well, for most of your life. I nodded, unable to speak through sudden tears. Sometimes the family we're born into isn't safe, she continued. And that's when we need to create boundaries to protect ourselves and our children. That evening, a courier delivered an envelope to my door. Inside was a formal cease and desist letter from Bradley, Stephanie's attorney husband. It claimed I was engaging in defamation of character and malicious spreading of false accusations against Stephanie. It demanded I stop discussing the alleged incident with anyone and remove any social media posts referring to it, though I hadn't posted anything. The letter concluded with a threat: should you pursue any legal action or continue to damage my client's reputation, we will be forced to counter with legal measures of our own, including but not limited to a lawsuit for defamation and filing for grandparents' rights visitation on behalf of Thomas and Eleanor Mitchell. I stared at the paper in disbelief. Not only were they denying any wrongdoing, but they were threatening to use the legal system to force Lily to spend time with the very people who had harmed her and dismissed that harm. Something snapped inside me. The fear and uncertainty that had kept me trapped in toxic family dynamics my entire life gave way to a clarity and resolve I'd never experienced before. This wasn't just about hair anymore. This was about breaking a generational cycle of abuse before it claimed my daughter too. I called my cousin Jennifer, who had consistently supported us since the incident. Can you recommend a good family lawyer? I asked when she answered. You're really going to fight them? She asked, surprise evident in her voice. They've left me no choice, I replied, my voice steadier than I'd expected. I've spent my whole life letting Stephanie hurt me and then apologizing for being hurt. I won't let her do the same to Lily. After hanging up, I checked on Lily, who had finally fallen into peaceful sleep for the first time in weeks. I gently touched her fuzzy head, new hair just beginning to grow in. I'll protect you, I whispered. Even if it means protecting you from the people who should have protected us both. The lawyer Jennifer recommended was Catherine Dawson, a no-nonsense family attorney with experience in cases involving both restraining orders and grandparents' rights claims. Her office was in a converted Victorian house downtown, with a waiting room full of children's toys and books, a thoughtful touch that immediately put Lily at ease when I brought her with me to our first appointment. Based on what you've described and the evidence you've gathered, we have several options, Catherine explained after hearing our story. She spoke directly to both of us, not just to me, another point in her favor. The unauthorized cutting of Lily's hair against her expressed wishes does constitute assault under state law, particularly given her age and the adult-child power dynamic. She outlined our potential courses of action. Filing a police report to create an official record, seeking a temporary restraining order against Stephanie, and preparing a counter-strategy against any grandparents' rights claim. What about the cease and desist? I asked, pushing the letter across her desk. Catherine scanned it and actually chuckled. This is mostly intimidation tactics. You haven't posted anything on social media, correct? And you've only discussed the incident with close friends, family, and professionals like Lily's therapist and school counselor? I nodded. Then you've done nothing wrong. Truth is an absolute defense against defamation. They're hoping to scare you into silence. We decided to start with a police report. The officer who took our statement was kind but frank about the challenges of prosecuting family disputes without physical injury. Still, he said, this creates a record. If there are future incidents or escalation, this helps establish a pattern. Next was a meeting with Lily's school. Though it was summer, the principal and school counselor met with us to develop a support plan for the fall term. They agreed to alert Lily's teacher about the situation and ensure that Stephanie would not be allowed to pick Lily up under any circumstances. We'll also keep an eye out for any bullying related to Lily's appearance, the counselor assured us. Unfortunately, children can be cruel about things like this. The most difficult meeting was with Dr. Karen, Lily's therapist, to discuss seeking a restraining order. The process would require Lily to talk about what happened, possibly even in court. "I don't want to see Aunt Stephanie," Lily said immediately, her body tensing. "You might not have to," Dr. Karen explained gently. "Sometimes judges will listen to recordings or written statements from children your age instead of making you come to court." "Would it make her stay away from us?" Lily asked. "That's the goal," I told her. "But I want you to understand that this is a big step. Grandma and Grandpa might be upset with us." Lily considered this, her face serious beyond her years. "Dr. Karen says we need to protect our safety bubble," she finally said. "Even if it makes people mad." While these official processes were in motion, I was surprised to find support from unexpected quarters. My neighbor Elena, who had witnessed Stephanie's treatment of me during a previous visit, offered to testify if needed. "I always thought something was off about her," Elena admitted. "The way she talked to you in front of Lily, all those backhanded compliments and little digs, it wasn't right." Jennifer connected me with our cousin Michael, whom I hadn't spoken to in years. As a teenager, he had been the target of some of Stephanie's cruelest pranks, including one that had resulted in a broken arm. "I've been waiting for someone in the family to finally stand up to her," he told me during a long phone call. "I'll back you up however I can." But the most surprising ally emerged in the midst of a frightening escalation. 3 weeks after the incident, I picked Lily up from her summer reading program at the local library to find her hiding behind the librarian's desk, shaking. "She wouldn't come out," the librarian explained, concerned. "She said her aunt was here looking for her." My blood ran cold. "Blonde woman, designer clothes, about my height?" The librarian nodded. "She said she was authorized to pick Lily up, but she wasn't on the approved list, so I refused." She got quite upset. That night, I installed security cameras at our apartment and applied for an emergency temporary restraining order, which was granted the next day. But the incident left Lily terrified, refusing to attend any activities outside our home. 2 days later, I received a text from an unknown number. "Mom doesn't know I'm contacting you. I'm sorry about what happened to Lily. It wasn't right. I want to help." It was Amanda, Stephanie's 16-year-old daughter. With Catherine's guidance, I arranged to meet Amanda at a coffee shop near her school, careful not to inadvertently violate any terms of our legal proceedings. The teenager who slid into the booth across from me looked both younger and older than her 16 years. Her eyes were ringed with dark circles, and she nervously picked at her cuticles throughout our conversation. "Mom's always been like this," she began without preamble. "Doing crazy things to people and then saying they're too sensitive when they get upset. She does it to me too." Amanda described growing up with Stephanie's unpredictable cruelty masked as jokes or tough love. Hair dye in her shampoo before school pictures. Revealing embarrassing stories to her friends. Throwing away prized possessions as punishment for perceived slights. "She told me we were just going to trim Lily's hair a little," Amanda continued, voice shaking. "But then she took out the clippers, and when Lily started crying, Mom held her down and told me to help or I'd be grounded for the rest of summer. I didn't know what to do." "Why are you telling me this now?" I asked gently. Amanda looked up, tears spilling onto her cheeks. "Because Dad's finally seeing what she's really like. They've been fighting about what happened with Lily. He found texts on her phone to Grandma where she admitted she did it to get back at you for something you said at Easter. Dad's talking about divorce, and Mom's losing it. I'm scared of what she might do next." Amanda agreed to provide a sworn statement about what happened to Lily and the pattern of Stephanie's behavior. It was a crucial piece of evidence, coming from someone within Stephanie's own household. With Amanda's testimony, the temporary restraining order was extended for 6 months, preventing Stephanie from coming within 500 feet of Lily, our home, or her school. My parents were devastated, publicly supporting Stephanie while privately sending mixed messages. "Your father and I don't approve of how you're handling this," my mother said during one tense phone call. "But," she added in a lower voice, "we've noticed some concerning behaviors from Stephanie lately. Just be careful." It wasn't the support I'd hoped for, but it was an acknowledgement, however small, that something was wrong. Meanwhile, the family continued to splinter. Some relatives cut contact entirely, while others reached out privately to share their own stories of Stephanie's cruelty over the years. As summer waned and the legal proceedings continued, Bradley filed for separation from Stephanie, moving out of their house and taking Amanda with him. The news spread through the family like wildfire, shifting the narrative. Suddenly, people who had dismissed my concerns were reconsidering. The most meaningful change, however, was happening at home. Lily's hair was slowly growing back, and with each millimeter of growth, her confidence seemed to return incrementally as well. The nightmares became less frequent. She agreed to return to short playground outings, then to playdates with trusted friends. In therapy, she created a feelings journal where she drew pictures representing her emotions. The early pages were filled with dark colors and angry scribbles, but gradually, brighter colors began to appear. "This is what I felt like when the judge said Aunt Stephanie has to stay away," she explained, showing me a page with a yellow sun peeking through gray clouds. For my part, I was working through my own therapy, uncovering the ways my childhood had taught me to minimize abuse and accept mistreatment as normal. I began setting boundaries not just with Stephanie, but with anyone who dismissed Lily's experience or my own. The family landscape was forever altered. Holiday plans were up in the air, relationships strained or severed. But in their place was something precious, a sense of safety and self-respect I'd never fully experienced before. For the first time in my life, I wasn't waiting for the next attack, bracing for the next joke at my expense. By standing up for Lily, I had finally learned to stand up for myself as well. The courtroom was smaller than I'd imagined, more intimate and therefore more intimidating. The hearing for the permanent restraining order was scheduled for a Tuesday morning in October. Lily sat with Jennifer in the hallway outside, coloring in a new activity book, while I entered with Catherine. Stephanie arrived flanked by Bradley's law partner. Bradley himself had recused himself from representing her, and my parents. She wore a conservative navy dress and minimal makeup, a stark contrast to her usual flashy style. "A calculated decision," Catherine whispered, to appear serious and maternal. When the judge entered, the formality of the proceedings hit me fully. This wasn't a family disagreement anymore, it was a legal matter with real consequences. As Catherine presented our case, I watched Stephanie's face. She maintained a wounded expression, occasionally dabbing at her eyes with a tissue, but I could see the familiar anger simmering beneath the performance. Her attorney portrayed her as a loving aunt who had simply misjudged a situation. My client acknowledges that cutting her niece's hair was perhaps an error in judgment, but it was done with playful intentions, not malice. The family has a history of practical jokes and teasing. This has been blown completely out of proportion. The judge, a woman in her 60s with penetrating eyes, seemed unimpressed. Regardless of intent, we have a child who clearly said no, who was physically restrained while her hair was removed against her will. The photos show a complete shaving of the head, not a trim gone wrong. This goes beyond a practical joke. We presented Dr. Karen's professional assessment of Lily's trauma, the police report, and statements from the school counselor. Then came Amanda's testimony, not in person, as she was a minor, but via a recorded statement. Watching that recording play in court, seeing Stephanie's face as her own daughter detailed her pattern of cruelty, was a turning point. The facade cracked. Stephanie interrupted several times, having to be warned by the judge to remain silent. "She's lying." Stephanie finally burst out as Amanda described how she'd admitted the haircut was revenge for something I'd said at Easter. "She's always been dramatic, just like her aunt. Rebecca has poisoned her against me." The outburst did more damage to her case than anything we could have presented. The judge called a brief recess, during which Stephanie's attorney could be seen urgently conferring with her in a corner. When court resumed, the judge granted the permanent restraining order, barring Stephanie from contact with Lily for 1 year, with the possibility of extension. Additionally, she recommended family counseling and parenting classes for Stephanie before any supervised visitation would be considered in the future. Outside the courtroom, my parents approached hesitantly. My father looked older somehow, the lines around his mouth deeper. "Rebecca," he began, his voice uncharacteristically uncertain. "Your mother and I have been talking. We still don't agree with how publicly you've handled this, but after what we heard today." He trailed off, looking to my mother. She picked up where he left off. "We've known Stephanie has had issues for years. But we never thought she would hurt Lily like this. Maybe we've been too quick to excuse behavior we should have addressed long ago." It wasn't quite an apology, but it was the closest thing to acknowledgement I'd ever received from them. They asked if they could see Lily, and I agreed to a short visit the following weekend, without Stephanie, of course. The family gathering for Thanksgiving was cancelled that year. Instead, small clusters of relatives made their own plans. Some sided firmly with Stephanie, including an uncle who had always enabled her behavior and 2 cousins who feared being cut from her social circle. But many more reached out to me privately, arranging coffee dates and park meetups where they shared their own experiences with Stephanie's cruelty. The most unexpected development came 2 days before Christmas, when Amanda showed up at our apartment with her father. "We wanted to bring Lily a gift," Bradley explained awkwardly. "And to talk to you, if that's okay." Over hot chocolate, Bradley revealed that he had filed for divorce. "I've been making excuses for Stephanie's behavior for years," he admitted. "Telling myself she just had a sharp sense of humor, that she didn't mean the things she said. But seeing what she did to Lily, and then how she tried to cover it up instead of taking responsibility." He shook his head. "I couldn't keep pretending." Amanda asked if she could stay with us occasionally while the divorce proceeded. "Mom's really angry all the time now," she explained. "She blames me for everything. Says I betrayed her by telling the truth." I agreed, and over the following weeks, our apartment became a refuge not just for Lily but for Amanda too. The teenager who had once seemed so distant became like a big sister to Lily, helping her try out fun hats and scarves while her hair grew back, teaching her to stand up to playground bullies with confidence. By spring, the family landscape had shifted dramatically. My parents, true to their word, had amended their will, not to cut me out as they had threatened, but to establish a trust for Lily's education that couldn't be accessed by either Stephanie or me directly. It was their way of acknowledging what had happened while maintaining some control. Stephanie, meanwhile, had moved to another state after her divorce was finalized, taking a job in real estate and starting over where her reputation hadn't preceded her. She still had defenders in the family, people who felt we had all overreacted to just a haircut. But they were increasingly in the minority as more stories of her past behavior came to light. The most profound change, though, was within our immediate circle. Lily's hair had grown into a stylish pixie cut that she decided she liked. "I'm keeping it short," she announced one day, surprising me. "But because I want to, not because someone made me." Her words encapsulated everything I had hoped she would learn from this painful experience: the power of choice, of boundaries, of owning her own body and decisions. That first holiday season without the extended family had been quiet but healing. Instead of forcing ourselves through tense family gatherings, we created new traditions, volunteering at an animal shelter on Christmas Eve, making cookies for neighbors, having a movie marathon in pajamas all day. "Is this our new family?" Lily asked one evening as we sat with Amanda and Jennifer, decorating our small artificial tree. "Yes," I told her, looking around at the chosen family we had gathered. "These are the people we've invited into our safety bubble." It wasn't the family I had grown up with, or even the one I had imagined for Lily. But it was built on respect, kindness, and truth, a foundation stronger than the blood ties that had failed us both. 6 months after the court hearing, Lily stood in front of our bathroom mirror, running her hands through her hair with a smile. What had once been a traumatic reminder had transformed into a stylish pixie cut that framed her face perfectly. The physical transformation mirrored her emotional one, from victim to survivor. I think I might keep it short forever, she declared, experimenting with a little gel to make the front stand up. Jenna at school says I look like a cool fairy. I smiled at her reflection. You can change your mind whenever you want. That's the important thing, it's your choice. Her therapist, Dr. Karen, had been amazed by Lily's progress. From a child too traumatized to leave the house, she had blossomed into someone who could talk openly about what happened and the lessons she'd learned. Some people don't know how to love the right way, she explained to her stuffed animals during a play therapy session I was invited to observe. They think hurting is the same as playing. But it's not. And it's okay to stay away from people who hurt you, even if they're family. Hearing my 7-year-old articulate what had taken me 34 years to understand brought tears to my eyes. My own therapy journey had been equally transformative. For the first time, I explored the full impact of growing up with Stephanie's abuse and my parents' enablement. I recognized patterns in my adult relationships. The tendency to minimize my own needs, to apologize for having boundaries, to assume criticism was justified even when it wasn't. You've spent your life being told your feelings don't matter, my therapist observed. No wonder it took something happening to Lily for you to finally say enough. The path forward with my extended family remained complex. True to form, they had split into factions. Some, like Jennifer and Michael, had become even closer to us, forming a support network that felt more like family than many of our blood relatives ever had. Others maintained contact but kept a careful distance, uncomfortable with the public nature of the rift but unwilling to fully side with Stephanie. A few cut ties entirely, unable to reconcile their image of the family with the ugly reality that had been exposed. My parents existed in an uncomfortable middle ground. 6 months after the court hearing, I received a letter from my father. An actual handwritten letter, something I'd never received from him before. Dear Rebecca, it began. I've been doing a lot of thinking since everything happened with Lily. Your mother and I have been in counseling ourselves, trying to understand how we missed or dismissed so many warning signs with Stephanie over the years. He went on to acknowledge, in halting but sincere terms, that they had failed to protect me as a child and had initially failed Lily too. I can't change the past, he wrote, but I'd like the chance to do better moving forward, if you're willing to give me that opportunity. It wasn't a perfect apology, he still referred to the situation rather than naming Stephanie's actions as assault, but it represented a seismic shift in our family dynamics. For the first time, someone was acknowledging harm instead of dismissing it. My mother took longer to come around. She maintained sporadic contact, calling on holidays and Lily's birthday, sending cards and gifts but avoiding any direct discussion of what had happened. I set clear boundaries for these interactions, no minimizing what Stephanie had done, no pressure for reconciliation, and absolutely no unsupervised time with Lily. Stephanie herself had moved 3 states away, starting over in a place where people didn't know her history. She maintained contact with our parents but made no attempt to reach out to me or Lily. The restraining order prevented it, but I suspected she wouldn't have anyway. In her narrative, we were still the villains who had blown a harmless prank out of proportion and turned the family against her. Amanda had become a regular part of our lives, spending weekends and school breaks at our apartment. At 16 going on 17, she was processing her own complicated feelings about her mother while preparing for college. I spent my whole life thinking I was the problem, she confided one evening as we sat on the balcony after Lily had gone to bed. That if I was just better, smarter, prettier, funnier, Mom would stop being so mean. But watching what she did to Lily made me realize it was never about me at all. Bradley, now Amanda's primary guardian, had filed for divorce within weeks of the court hearing. The proceedings were messy and acrimonious, with Stephanie fighting for assets but showing little interest in custody arrangements. The final agreement gave Bradley primary custody, with Stephanie having supervised visitation that she rarely exercised. I think seeing me stand up to her gave him courage, I mused to Jennifer during one of our coffee dates. He'd been enabling her for so long, he didn't know how to stop until someone showed him it was possible. The most unexpected connection came from distant relatives who reached out after hearing about what happened. A second cousin who had moved across the country decades earlier confessed that she had left because of Stephanie's bullying. An elderly great-aunt revealed that she had seen Stephanie push me down the stairs as a child but had been told by my parents not to interfere with how they raised their girls. These stories formed a tapestry of generational trauma and silence that had allowed abuse to flourish. I was determined that the cycle would end with me. That determination was put to the test when Lily's school announced a project on family heritage. Students were asked to interview grandparents and bring photos for a display. Lily came home anxious. "Do I have to talk to Grandma and Grandpa for this?" she asked. "What if they ask about Aunt Stephanie?" We sat together and discussed options, ultimately deciding that she would interview my father, who had been making genuine efforts to rebuild our relationship, but with me present. The resulting conversation was sometimes awkward but ultimately healing, as 3 generations navigated new ways of relating to each other. For the project display, Lily created a family tree that included not just biological relatives but also chosen family, Jennifer, Dr. Karen, Amanda, and others who had supported us through the darkest days. Her teacher was so impressed by the concept that she invited Lily to present it to the class. Standing before her peers, my once shy daughter explained with remarkable poise, "Family isn't just who you're born to. It's who makes you feel safe and loved. Sometimes the people who are supposed to love you don't know how to do it right. And that's when you need to find people who do." Several parents contacted me afterward, sharing how Lily's presentation had sparked important conversations in their own homes about healthy relationships and boundaries. The school year culminated in a presentation on personal heroes, for which Lily chose me. "My mom taught me that sometimes being brave means walking away from people who hurt you, even if you love them," she wrote in her essay. "And sometimes it means letting new people into your heart to heal the broken parts." Reading those words, I reflected on how far we'd come. The journey hadn't been easy. There had been legal fees, therapy costs, relationships lost, and many tears shed. But sitting in that elementary school classroom, watching my daughter stand tall and confident, I knew every difficult step had been worth it. That evening, as I tucked Lily into bed, she asked a question that had come up periodically since everything happened. "Do you think Aunt Stephanie will ever say she's sorry? Like, really sorry?" I considered the question carefully. "I don't know, sweetheart. Some people find it very hard to admit when they've done something wrong. They'd rather pretend it didn't happen or blame someone else." "That's sad," Lily observed. "Because saying sorry when you mess up feels bad at first, but then it feels better. Dr. Karen says it's like cleaning out a cut, it stings but then it can heal properly." "Dr. Karen is very wise," I agreed, smoothing her hair. "And so are you." Lily was quiet for a moment, then said, "I don't think I want to see Aunt Stephanie again, even if she does say sorry." "Is that okay?" "That's absolutely okay," I assured her. Forgiveness doesn't mean you have to let someone back into your life, especially if they've hurt you. It just means you're not letting the hurt control you anymore. She nodded, satisfied, and snuggled deeper under her covers. "I think we're doing pretty good without her anyway." Looking around at our cozy apartment, at the life we'd rebuilt from the ashes of broken family bonds, I had to agree. We had lost much, but gained something precious: authenticity, boundaries, and a deeper understanding of what love truly means. The family we had now might be smaller, might not fit the traditional definition, but it was real. It was based on respect, kindness, and mutual support rather than obligation and fear. That, I had come to believe, was worth more than any inheritance or family tradition could ever be. As Lily drifted off to sleep, I thought about all the people who had walked this journey with us, those who had stood by us from the beginning, those who had joined along the way, and even those who had chosen a different path. Each had taught us something valuable about strength, resilience, and the courage to live truthfully. The road ahead would have its own challenges. There would be family events to navigate, new boundaries to establish, and ongoing healing for both Lily and me. But we would face it together, surrounded by those who had earned their place in our safety bubble, one act of kindness at a time. If you've made it this far in my story, I want to thank you for bearing witness to our journey. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family members to protect yourself or your children? What helped you find the strength to stand up against toxic relationships? Please like and subscribe if this story resonated with you, and share it with someone who might need to hear that it's okay to choose your own well-being, even when family expectations pull you in another direction. Remember, sometimes the bravest thing we can do is redefine what family means to us.